recap what Tom talked about last week because it is imperative for what we're going to talk about this week. Last week's events really set up and in many ways put in motion the things that happen in this week's chapters of 13 and 14. So we've been going through 2 Samuel. We went over the story last week, chapter 11 of David and Bathsheba. Very famous, but let me quickly recap. David, instead of going out to battle like most other kings, he was hanging out on the palace roof and was being a bit of a peeping Tom. He spots a beautiful woman and lusts after her. Remember that. There's a few things that I want you to keep in mind. Remember him lusting after this woman. So he has her brought to him and he sleeps with her. She gets pregnant. Surprise, surprise. That's what happens when you do those things. In case you didn't know. So to cover up his wrongdoing, he schemes up a plan. First, he brings the woman's husband home, who is out at battle, hoping that when he returns that he will sleep with her and then it'll look like it's his kid when it's not actually his kid. But Uriah, the woman's husband, does not go home, so David has to scheme up another plan. So he tries to get Uriah drunk, hoping that that'll loosen him up and that'll go home. That doesn't work either. Remember that part about getting them drunk, because that'll play into tonight's message as well, or section. So David, after exhausting all those things, decides just to have the guy killed, right? He puts him in this mission that would ensure death, and it worked. Then David, after Uriah is dead, marries Uriah's pregnant wife, thinking he got away with it all. I want us to take a moment, though, to acknowledge all the scheming and plotting that just took place around this immorality of sex outside of marriage. It's going to come into play again a lot tonight. It's also worth noting that this is something that has been forming in David's character for a while now. This didn't just come about all of a sudden. I'm just going to come out with it. I'm not on Team David. I'm not a huge fan of the guy. A lot of people think he's a great dude. I don't know. To me, he's like 50-50. He's 50% does good stuff, 50% does bad stuff. And I want to be more than that. And so, yeah, this is something in his character. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Anyway, after 2 years, David thinks that he's got away with it. He thinks he's in the clear. But Nathan, the prophet, confronts him of his sin by using a made-up story. Remember that. That'll come into play tonight as well. David then confesses his sin only after being confronted, mind you. Nathan also told David that because of his actions, his family, and as a result, his kingdom would be in great turmoil. Honestly, had they stopped the story at chapter 10, David would have been a pretty good character. However, the story continues on for another 12 chapters or so, and we see David's tragic downfall. He had some decent mess-ups throughout what we've already gone through, but the rest of this, I don't know if there's any victory in David's story in these last 12 chapters. It's all pretty bad. But again, this wasn't something that happened just out of the blue. This was something that has been developing over time and was never dealt with, which point one is in the introduction, but point one that I want to really nail home tonight is that we need to deal with our sin and take it serious before it really becomes serious, right? Deal with it now so that later on it's not this big monster that we have to deal with. Take care of it. Get it in check. And so there is more to the chapter in chapter 12, but a lot of that doesn't apply to tonight. David, stuff happens. You can check the video on YouTube for Tom's message that he gave last week. But let's dive in. But before we do, let's pray. God, I do thank you for this, your word. God, this is a challenging section, and I'm not necessarily looking forward to going through it just because of the nastiness that is in this, the depravity of man that is in this. But God, you have put this in the Bible for us to learn from, to understand. So God, I pray that we can learn from the mistakes of these people, that we can see them and see how we can avoid them. God, that we can flee immorality, that we can flee these youthful lusts, just like your word tells us, God, and that we can get into check our character and just be people that are leaving positive imprints on this world and on our families and on the community around us. And pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So, chapter 13. It's the title in most in most Bibles is Amnon and Tamar. If you have the NLT, it just puts it right in your face of what this is all about. I will say this, when I was young, I used to go to the CD store. That was when, like, those are compact discs for you young people. Those are little things you put into a machine and it plays. Anyway, you'd go to the CD store, and on the CDs would be, on some of them would be this label that said parental advisory, like explicit content. I think this chapter needs that just because of the severity and what we're going to talk about. I'm going to do my best, because I know my son, who has little ears, is in here. I'm going to do my best to be mindful of that. But yes, please note explicit content. This is not good stuff. This is depravity at its finest. Hello, son. I would tell you to get your earmuffs on, but hey, here we go. Anyway, chapter 13 starts like this. Now it was after this, that's all the recap that I just did, after this, that Absalom, the son of David, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar, and Amnon was the son of David. Amnon, the son of David, was in love with her. All right, let me unpack some of that stuff in the sentence. We're introduced to the four main characters of this chapter. Absalom is David's son, so David is the king. He's character 1. Absalom, character 2. Tamar is Absalom's full sister. So David had multiple wives, at least 8, and several concubines. But Absalom and Tamar are full sisters, and then they have a brother, Amnon, who is a half-brother, same dad, different mom. Amnon, it's believed, is the oldest, and so he would be the heir apparent, or the crowned prince, the next in line to inherit the throne. I think Absalom maybe is the second in line. I'm not sure. We don't really know, because it doesn't tell us specifically, and we never find out because they both die before David dies. Spoiler alert. I'm not supposed to say that. My wife always gets mad when I say spoiler alert. But anyway, those are the four characters. And what happens next is, it says this, though, that Amnon was the son of David, and he was in love with Tamar. Love there should probably be changed to the word lust. I don't think that this is true biblical love. This is, he was lusting after her. He desired her, but this wasn't true love. This is a bit of conjecture here. I can't prove this, but it could be argued that David never modeled true love between a husband and a wife to his children. Right? I mean, how could he, being married to 8 different women and having concubines to boot? Clearly what he modeled was how to lust after women, and his son followed suit. And so I'll just say this, another point to bring home is, fathers and men, your children are watching. Model true biblical love towards everyone, especially your wives. Your children, male and female, they need it. They need to see how a man truly loves a woman, specifically his wife, but how a man truly loves everybody, but specifically in a wife. That will set them up for great success in their marriage. They will know what to look for when they get married. So model that. And grandparents, and if you're beyond that, your kids have moved out, still model those things, even if your kids aren't at home. Anyway, verse 2, not chapter, verse 2. But Amnon was so frustrated on account of his sister Tamar that he made himself ill, for she was a virgin, and it seemed too difficult for Amnon to do anything to her. So he wanted her, but couldn't have her because it's his sister. Yuck, gross, right? And he wanted her so bad that he became ill. He made himself sick, lovesick, I guess you could say, because he wanted this girl that was his sister, half-sister, but still, against the law nonetheless. Verse 3, but Amnon had a friend, I'm going to put air quotes there, this is not a friend, this is a scoundrel dirtbag, whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shinema? I had it earlier, Shimeha, we'll just say that. David's brother, and Jonadab was a very clever man. Clever, again, is giving him nice words. I think he's a scoundrel and a conniver, but nonetheless. Verse 4, and he said to him, this is Jonadab saying to Amnon, why are you, the king's son, so depressed morning after morning? He's saying, hey, you're the son of the king. You're the heir apparent. You have the whole kingdom at your fingertips. Why are you upset? You can get anything you want. And then Amnon says, actually, I can't, because he says this next. So Amnon said to him, I'm in love, quote, with Tamar, the sister of my brother Absalom. Just so you know, the sister of your brother is also your sister. Now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's not his full sister, and it is Absalom's full sister, so maybe that's why he said it, but still, your sister. Jonadab said to him then, scheme, bad dude, lie down in your bed and pretend to be ill. When your father comes to see you, say to him, please have my sister Tamar come and give me food to eat, and have her prepare the food in my sight, so that I may see it and eat from her hand. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, please have my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of pastries in my sight, so that I may eat from her hand. This is a very odd and oddly specific request, right? Unless Tamar just has the best pastries in all the kingdom and everyone knows it, like David should be asking himself, why Tamar? We have nurses, we have handmaidens, like why the princess? That doesn't make sense. And I will say this too. This is a good time. Again, I'm really harping on fathers. I just read a book. I'm going to read actually a little bit from the book, but it's called The Men We Need. Matt, hold it up. Come on. Right there it is. The Men We, Abe's got it too. The Men We Need. I just read that book. It's the book that we're going to be going and using as a basis for the men's refuel. You guys should go October 31st, men's refuel. Sign up soon. But I will say in that book, it really just got me thinking, and this chapter is all like that book really helps. But I will say this is a good time to endorse present and active fathers. Some fathers are present but not active. They're disconnected. This is me preaching to myself, on their cell phones or playing video games or doing whatever, or their kids are off in their bedroom and they're off in the living room and they never talk even though they're in the same house. That's present, but that's not active. And there's some parents that are off, fathers that are off working all week, then they come home on the weekend and they're fun dad, but then when they're missing mathing is not mathing, but 5/7 of their kids' lives because they're off working. We need fathers who are both present and active. And had David, I know his kids are adults, but had David been a present and active father, he would have been much more likely to glean some information and say, I've seen you in the way you look at your sister, and this is an oddly specific request. Something's up here, buddy. Why are you doing this? But he was not active. He was not present. And so it says this, verse 7, David sent a messenger to the house of Tamar, saying, go now to your brother Amnon's house and prepare for him food. So Tamar went to her brother's house, and he was lying in his bed. And she took dough, kneaded it, and made pastries in his sight, and baked the pastries. Then she took the tray and served him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, have everyone leave me. So everyone left him. So he said, hey, have Tamar make me some pastries. And then she does, and he's like, I don't want the pastries. At least not with everyone around. I can only eat these pastries with only Tamar in the room, right? He has everyone leave except for Tamar. Again, red flags should be going off like, David, or Amnon, what's going on here? This is kind of oddly specific, right? And so everyone left him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring me the food into my bedroom so that I may eat from your hand. So Tamar took the pastries which she had made and brought them into the bedroom to her brother Amnon. When she had brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said, come sleep with me, my sister. But she said to him, she pleaded, she said, no, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful sin. She says, hey, this is not okay according to the Israelite way. Like, this is not, like maybe the pagans and the heathens and the other cultures, that's okay, but this is not okay. This does not look good. This is a disgraceful sin. And she says in verse 13, as for me, where could I get rid of my shame? She's like, once they've been defiled, that essentially it's a curse on them, and they're no longer able to be married. And we'll see that is actually what happens. And she's like, how can I get rid of this? And then she says, for you will be like one of the fools in Israel. You're going to look like a big dummy. Doesn't actually happen, but it kind of does. We'll get there. But yeah, she's like, you're going to look like a fool. Now then, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not listen to her since he was stronger than she. He violated her and slept with her. I will say this, David probably would not have given Tamar over to his brother or her brother. I think she was just saying that to buy some time to make some excuses and get out of there like, hey, go talk with dad and figure this out. And when David hopefully found out, he would do something about it, but that didn't happen. So this is a terrible sin, but it's worth noting that it all stems from David. Now, I'm not taking the blame away from Amnon, but remember what we just talked about last week and the events that unfolded last week. Remember, Amnon grew up in a house of an indulgent man. He observed David and his many, many wives and concubines. Amnon, I'm sure, was well aware of his father's actions with Bathsheba, despite already having many wives and concubines, right? And like father, like son, he thought he could have any woman that he lusted after too. David is like, I'm the king, I want her, bring her up. And Amnon's like, well, I'm the next in line, I'm just going to do this now, so let me start practicing what my dad has taught me. I want you, come to me. And that's what he did. Again, I just read that book, The Men We Need, but in that book, it talks a lot about all of the unseen harm that our action and inaction causes, right? Everything that we do has a ripple effect in our lives and affects those around us, our actions and our inactions. And this goes for male and female, but what we are doing has a big impact, especially on those in closest proximity. And I don't know about you, but I want to be making positive, godly ripples. Those are the ripples that I want to be sending out. In fact, I want to be making positive, godly waves and sending those out and making a massive impact for God in my community, but in my family first. And so that is what we need to do, and I hope that's what you need to do too. But it says this in verse 15. Big old switcheroo. It says, then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred. Indeed, the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, get up, go away. So the lust he had for her was so shallow that it was quickly replaced by a much deeper hatred, right? This was not love, this was lust, and that is very surface level, very shallow, and it was replaced with hatred. This is such a powerful message of why sex needs to be exclusive to marriage. The lust that enthralls us and to desire sex is depleted once the act is over. For most men, or rather I'll say boys, once the conquest has been achieved, they have to find a new conquest to embark on, aka a new woman, a new female to conquer, right? I've already done that, so now I need to find something else and avert my attention. Once you've achieved that, it's like, there's nothing else to achieve. On to the next thing, right? A friend of mine sent me an article today. He had no idea that I was teaching. I had no idea that I was teaching when he sent me this, but I was studying and I was like, oh, I just read that somewhere. Where did I read that? And it was an article that a friend sent me. But it says this. I think Timothy Keller wrote some of this. I don't know. It was kind of referenced, but not fully. But it says this. Sex is perhaps the most powerful God-created way to help you give your entire self to another human being. Sex is God's appointed way for two people to reciprocally say to one another, I belong completely, permanently, and exclusively to you. You must not use sex to say anything less. So according to the Bible, a covenant is necessary for sex. It goes on to say, but what happens when you try to pluck the sexual act out of the setting of relationship commitment and exclusivity? I can say that word, exclusivity. I don't know, something like that. When sex is no longer about intimacy, but rather raw, sentient, or sinnate pleasure, sex is diminished, it's downgraded, it's worse. To use C.S. Lewis's evocative image in Mere Christianity, it's like chewing food but then spitting it out. You get the taste but lack all the nourishment. To reduce sex to a merely physical act is to miss its meaning entirely. Here we see Amnon spitting out his sister after he got what he wanted from her, or at least what he thought that he wanted. So, verse 16, moving on. But she said to him, this is wrong in sending me. Sorry, this is a weird sentence in this Bible. No, because this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you have done to me. Essentially what she's saying is, hey, you did this, and now you should either marry me or take care of me because I have now been defiled. If you send me away, I'm going to be desolate and on my own for the rest of my life. That's even worse to her than this one act, which both are terrible. Verse 17, then he called his young man who attended him and said, now throw this woman, not my sister, but this woman out of my presence and lock the door behind her. She had on a long sleeve garment, for this is how the virgin daughters of the king dressed themselves in robes. Then his attendant took her out and locked the door behind her. Tamar took ashes and put them on her head. This is a sign of mourning. She tore her long sleeve garment, which was on her, another sign of mourning, and she put her hand on her head and went on her way crying as she went out. This woman was violated and broken. And so next, who comes to her aid? Let's check this out. It says this, 20. Then Absalom, her brother, said to her, has Amnon, your brother, been with you? Now keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart. So Tamar remained and was isolated in her brother Absalom's house. I'm pretty sure this is the last thing that we hear of Tamar doing. I'm pretty sure she basically lives. It doesn't explicitly say this, but I'm pretty sure what that means is that she lived in Absalom's house as a widow, or not widow, but a virgin, not a virgin, but as a unmarried woman, desolate for the rest of her life. She never married, and was not good. But Absalom took her in. So who came to her aid? Absalom. 21. Now when King David, here's Dad. Dad heard. Let's see. When David heard about these all these matters, he became very angry. But Absalom did not speak with Amnon either good or bad. So back to Absalom, he for 2 years it says, but hated Absalom because he violated his sister Tamar. So he's mad, but he's like, you know what? I'm just going to play this cool and not do anything. Verse 23, now it came about after 2 full years. Wait a second, let's stop. Did you notice anything there, or maybe a lack of something there? What did David do? Now he got angry. Yippee. Good job, Dad. You got angry. He did nothing except for got angry. Let me read a short section from that book, The Men We Need. It's about anger. The chapter that I'm going to read from is entitled this, Angry Men Aren't Attractive to Women, but Men of Action Are. The author, Brad Hainje, is interviewing himself because he wrote a book on anger, and so he's answered a lot of questions, so he's asking the questions that he's been asked many times and then answering them. So I'm going to pick one question, though, and it says this, isn't anger kind of masculine? What kind of man doesn't get angry? And that's the question. The answer that Brant gives is no, it's not masculine. Toddlers get angry. Anger is hardly a sign of strength. It's funny, when I've done interviews about this subject on talk radio, it's usually with a male host who starts flexing about how angry he is about such and such issue. He says something like, I'll be darned if I'm going to stand by and allow that to happen. How could you tell me not to get angry about it? But anger doesn't change anything. Actions change things. Don't confuse the two, as many often do. In my view, it's amazing how little all the righteously angry people actually do. They get worked up, maybe fire off some social media posts, and pat themselves on the back for being so righteous in their anger. In fact, they'll get mad if you aren't mad enough, they'll get mad if you're not mad enough about the thing they're mad about. Does that sound familiar? I hope it doesn't. But that's essentially what David did here. And what Brant is saying is simply getting angry doesn't fix anything. David just got angry and it did nothing. Now, more conjecture, but I believe that if David had dealt quickly and seriously with the issue, a lot of the further issues may have been prevented. I believe David's inaction here was the root cause of Absalom's rebellion that we'll learn about in 2 chapters. It started right here with this event and David's failure to deal with this event. And so I'll say it again. I said it a bit ago. I'll say it again. If we don't deal seriously with our sin now, it will come back even bigger and greater. Soft on crime policies never help anyone, and special treatment because you're the child of someone important, that doesn't help anyone either. This needed to be dealt with. It was not dealt with. This is a massive failure on David's behalf. And again, this is I think one of the pinnacles of the downfall of David's kingdom because his lack. Now, the prophet Nathan did prophesy that this stuff would happen, and I'm not saying that David could have counteracted that, but had he done something? Come on, David. Anyway, verse 23, let's read that again. Now it came about after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim, and Absalom invited the king's son to celebrate. So essentially, any time that they would shear the sheep, it was harvest time, quote unquote, and it was a big time of celebration. So everyone would come out, they'd do a big feast to celebrate the harvest. 24, and Absalom came to the king and said, behold, remember, this is 2 years after the event that we just read about. Behold, now your servants has sheep shearers, and the king and his servants may the king and his servants please go with your servant. But the king said to Absalom, no, my son, we shall not go so that we will not be a burden to you. Essentially, he's like, no, we're not going to go. We don't want to be in your way. And Absalom's like, no, you should come. You should come. And so, though he urged him, that's Absalom, he would not go, but he blessed him. So David blessed him. Then Absalom said, if not, please have my brother Amnon go with us. But the king said to him, why should he go with you? Nevertheless, Absalom urged him, so he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Again, David receives an odd and oddly specific request. This time he does question it, but ultimately he concedes. A red flag should have gone up in David's mind knowing what had transpired between Amnon and Absalom's sister Tamar. He should have been like, why do you want that guy? He did something pretty bad to your sister a couple years ago. But then again, Absalom's been playing it cool. Maybe David ended up sending all of his sons and compromising, saying, if all my sons go, then maybe something will be prevented because a crowd will prevent any nefarious deeds. Let's see how that works. 28. Then Absalom commanded his servants, saying, see now, when Absalom's heart is cheerful with wine. Remember how David tried to get Uriah to lay with Bathsheba to cover it up? He got him drunk. Here, Absalom's taking a play out of his father's book. So he's getting him cheerful with wine, a.k.a. drunk. I will say to you, strike Amnon, then put him to death. Do not fear. Have I not commanded you myself? Be courageous and valiant. He's saying, hey, this is from me. You guys are following my orders. If anyone gets in trouble, it's going to be on me. I'm the one that told you to do it. You're just following orders. And the servants of Absalom did to Amnon just as Absalom had commanded. So he killed him. All right, got him drunk and killed him. And then all the king's sons got up, each mounted his mule and fled. Now it was while they were on their way that the report came to David saying, Absalom has struck and killed all the king's sons, and not one of them is still left. This is a good reminder to never just trust the first report and take it as gold. Usually get some more reports, because the first report may not be the best, especially if it's super fast. Wait a little while, get some more details, because this was totally wrong. Then the king stood up, tore his clothes, and lay on the ground, and all the servants were standing by with clothes torn. And Jonadab, remember that wonderful man, the same friend of Amnon that told him to do bad things and violate his sister. Jonadab was there, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and he responded, let my lord not assume that they have put to death all the young men, the king's sons, for only Amnon is dead. How does he know this? He's got some insider information, it seems, because this has been set up by the intent of Absalom since the day that he violated his sister Tamar. Even this guy's like, man, he's been scheming and plotting and having this bacon for a while. Like this, you didn't see this coming? Like there's only one brother that Absalom doesn't like, and it's Amnon. The rest of them, they're fine. If any of them are dead, it's him, not all of them. Now, So now, verse 33, so now may my lord the king not take the report to heart, claiming all the king's sons are dead, but only Amnon is dead. Yeah. I will say this very quickly. David did not act, so Amnon felt the need to take vengeance into his own hands. And I'll say this, the law that God gave us, or one of the reasons God gave the law to the Israelites was to ensure righteous justice was dealt equally to everyone. There was a standard that was set because what happens, humans have a tendency when someone wrongs us or something happens, we want to do them even more wrong. Right? We want to raise the stakes, and the law kept that from going above. You could go below and show mercy, but you could not go above. Now, I'm not a fan of this, but the law only required a man to be put to death for what Amnon did to Tamar if the woman was engaged or married. If she was single, using today's terms, if she was single or unmarried or not engaged, the man had to either take her as a wife and could not divorce her, or had to pay the husband, or not the husband, the father, a bride price, which to me doesn't make up for it, but that was in the law. I will say Absalom enacted the greater punishment because David did not act at all. Verse 34, now Absalom had fled. The young man who was the watchman raised his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming from the road behind him by the side of the mountain. And Jonadab said to the king, behold, the king's sons have come. So it happened according to your servant's word. And as soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's son came and raised their voices and wept, and the king and all his servants also wept very profusely. Now Absalom had fled and gone to Ptolemy, the son of Ammihud, the king of Geshur. Now this was his mother's father, so his mother was like the princess of Geshur, and so Absalom is going to his grandfather's place where he will find refuge and be safe. This is his mother's father. And David mourned for his son every day, so Absalom had fled and gone to Geshur and was there for 3 years. A lot of time has passed in just this chapter, and more time will pass. And the heart of the king, David, longed to go out to Absalom, for he was comforted regarding Amnon, since he was dead. All right, let's move into chapter 14. I'm going to take a quick drink. I got my pocket water. Whew. All right, chapter 14. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was drawn toward Absalom. Joab, remember, is King David's general, the leader of his army, the commander of his army, and he notices something is off with David, and he knows it's because of Absalom, and so he schemes up this plan to get David to return back to a normal state, or at least he hopes. We'll see how it works out. Verse 2, so Joab sent a messenger to Tekoa and brought a wise woman from there and said to her, please follow mourning rites and put on mourning garments now, and do not anoint yourself with oil, but like a woman who has been mourning for the dead for many days. Then go to the king and speak to him in this way. So Joab put the words in her mouth. So he says, hey, wise woman, I need you to pretend like you're mourning, like you've lost somebody and you've been mourning for many days, and then go and say these exact words. So he coaches her on what to say, and this is what she says, verse 4. Now when the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, that's David, she fell on her face to the ground and prostrate herself and said, help, O king. And the king said to her, what is your trouble, or what is troubling you? And she said, truly I am a widow, for my husband is dead, and your servant, that's her, had 2 sons, but the 2 of them fought in the field, and there was no one to save them from each other. So one struck and killed the other and killed him. So a widow comes, a supposed widow comes. She's probably not actually a widow, but she's pretending to be a widow, and she had 2 sons that are out in the field. They got in some sort of tiff, little fight, and one of them killed the other, and now she's like, David, I need your help on this. It says this, verse 7, "Now behold, the entire family has risen against your servant, and they have said, 'Hand over the one who struck his brother, so that we may put him to death for the life of his brother whom he killed, and eliminate the heir as well. So they will extinguish my coal which is left, and so as to leave my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth.'" So what she's saying is, hey, they're going to kill my only remaining son. The guy that killed the son that killed my other son, they're trying to kill him, and that will leave me with nobody, and my husband's name will no longer prevail or go on because his bloodline is dead. Now, do you remember how Nathan went to David with a made-up story to get him to understand something, to get him to understand the whole Bathsheba thing? Joab is taking a play out of Nathan's playbook and saying, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make up some story that'll get David thinking, and then, so he conceived this story with enough similarities, but also enough differences that David would not catch on, but would then say something that would trap himself in his own words. Remember, Nathan gave the story of the sheep, and then David's like, oh, this, and this has to happen. And Nathan says, you are that guy. And so he trapped himself. David's going to trap himself again. Right here, let's go the next 4 verses. Verse 8, "Then the king said to the woman, 'Go to your home, and I will issue orders concerning you.' The woman of Tekoa said to the king, 'My lord, the king, the guilt is on me and my father's house, but the king and his throne are guiltless.' So the king said, 'Whoever speaks to you, bring him to me, and he will not touch you anymore.' Then she said, 'May the king please remember the Lord your God, so that the avenger of blood will not continue to destroy, otherwise they will destroy my son.' And he said," here we go, this is it, "'As the Lord lives, not one hair of your son shall fall on the ground or to the ground.'" Got him. She made him say just enough that he trapped himself, right? She made him say that the son who killed his brother should not be harmed. In other words, Absalom, who killed his brother, should not be harmed by anyone for killing his brother. David just pardoned a murderous son of a widow who killed his brother for no given reason, but can't seem to pardon his own son who killed his brother in retaliation to the violation of his sister, something that David did not enact, he did not take care of, so Absalom took it into his own hands. I'm not saying that Absalom was right in what he did, but it was more understandable. There needed to be punishment. He just took the punishment too far, possibly. I don't know. I'll keep silent there. But I will say David's inaction caused this, and now David is kind of trapped by saying that the son that killed his other brother and would be the one who carries on the lineage and the name, the family name, should not be harmed. And so, verse 12, here we go. Got him. Then the woman said, "Please let your servant speak a word to my lord the king." And he said, "Speak." The woman said, "Why have you planned such a thing against the people of God? For in speaking this word, the king is like one who is guilty, and in that the king does not bring back his banished one." She says, hey, you're going to do this for me, but you won't even do it for your own son? Like your own banished son? You won't bring him back and pardon him? Again, whether or not he should have, but this was Joab's plan to bring Absalom back, to get David, put the pep back in his step, because David was mourning the loss and it had been a while. Verse 14, "For we will surely die and are like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up. Yet God does not take away life, but he makes plans so that the banished one will not be cast out from him." There's a lot in that, but I don't have time to get into that. But that is a beautiful verse about God's salvation, the prodigal son, right? And coming back, and how he has a plan. He wants us to return. So I did say something, but he wants us to come back, and he'll go running and welcome us back. David, this is the exact opposite of the prodigal son, right? David's son, the bad guy who did these bad things, got to live and all this stuff, and then his good son, his righteous anger son, which probably wasn't the right thing, goes off, and David won't even take him back. And then when he does take him back, still fails. Anyway, verse 15, now then, the reason I have come to speak this word to my lord the king is that the people have made me afraid. So your servant said, let me now speak to the king. Perhaps the king will perform the request of his slave, for the king will listen to save his slave from the hand of the man who will eliminate both me and my son from the inheritance of God. Then your servant said, please let the word of my lord the king be comforting. For as the angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and evil, and may the Lord your God be with you. She's laying it on thick at the end there, kind of flattering him, buttering up, saying, hey, you have the discernment of good and evil from like the angel of God. You know it. You know what's right. And then David, in his great discernment, said this. Verse 18, then the king answered and said to the woman, please do not hide anything from me that I am about to ask you. And the woman said, let my lord the king please speak. So the king said, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? Oh, he's like, did Joab put you up to this? And she says, as your soul lives, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right or to the left from anything that my lord the king has spoken. She's like, it doesn't matter if Joab put me up to this or not. You said what you said, and you need to follow through on your word. So whether it was from me or Joab, doesn't matter. But then she says, indeed, it was your servant Joab who commanded me. So she's reminding him, like, doesn't matter. But yes, it was. And it was he who put all these words in the mouth of your servant. In order to change the appearance of things, your servant Joab has done this thing. But my Lord is wise, like the wisdom, again, laying it on thick here, like the wisdom of the angel of God to know all that is on the earth. When my wife and I are trying to determine something and she wants her way, she usually says, babe, you are wise, like the wisdom of the angel of God. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. So whatever you said, let's do it. I'm just kidding. She doesn't actually say that, but she does think it. Just kidding. David realized that Joab was behind all of this, but it was the wise woman ended with some flattery. So he excuses it and he's like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. And they go on. So it says this, verse 21, then the king said to Joab, behold, now I will certainly do this thing. So then bring back the young man Absalom. So David's like, you win, checkmate, and go get him. Go get Absalom. You want to bring him back? Bring him back. And Joab fell on his face to the ground, prostrated himself, and blessed the king. Then Joab said, today your servant knows that I have found favor in your sight, my lord the king, and that the king has performed the request of his servant. He's like, shoo, that could have ended bad, that could have really backfired, but I know that you're a good guy because you didn't kill me, and you did it, and you followed through with your word. So I think he was very relieved and happy. Verse 23, so Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. However, the king said, he shall return to his own house, but he shall not see my face. So Absalom returned to his own house and did not see the king's face. Now we're actually going to stop there because the story kind of follows Absalom at that point, and it really starts Absalom's rebellion. It talks about his super heavy hair, which I know all about. I have 5-pound hair that I have to cut once every year. But it says that for 2 years, that Absalom and David didn't see each other. So did he actually forgive him? No. Like, he's being passive David once again, inactive David, failing to man up and take responsibility, failing to go and confront his son and just be like, hey, what you did was bad, but, and again, failing to be that father of the prodigal son who has the son return and goes and embraces him and says, you know what, I forgive you, let's make this right. He said instead, basically, he can come back to Jerusalem, but I'm going to give him the silent treatment. Boy, that really lets someone know that you've forgiven them, right? This is just adding fuel to the already blazing fire of Absalom's rebellion, which, speaking of blazing fire and Absalom's rebellion, that's for next time. We will get to that. But let me conclude with 3 quick takeaways. 1, I've said all of these, but I'm just bringing them back. 1, we need to deal with our sin immediately before it gets out of control. 2, We are setting an example for those around us, whether we acknowledge it or not. Let's be setting a godly example. And 3, anger and action are not the same thing. Anger doesn't fix anything. Action does. Control your anger and act in a godly way.